Hi, my name is Carly Van Sickle, and today we're going to be discussing why you shouldn't be purchasing your lovely little family pet dog from the puppy mill or those fancy little pet stores we always see and are so tempted to go in, and why you should be purchasing from the pet shelter or a local trusted breeder. So today we are going to be discussing some information provided from the NSPCA, which is the Nevada Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. They have a little page on their website dedicated to this topic and shedding light to how bad these situations are in these puppy mills / fancy little pet stores we see. So let me dive deep into this. So before these puppies get transported to these pet stores, they're in these little farms, if you will call it, where you have these breeder dogs. And these breeder dogs they're adult dogs, only used for the specific purpose of reproducing. That's all they're good for. They don't get a healthy life. They're just used for breeding until they practically die. It is an awful life for these little dogs, and their offspring is basically a whole bunch of these little puppies confined into very small spaces that the NSPCA claims to be very overcrowded, very lack of nutrition, so food and water, not enough space, so they can't even get out to go and run. They often have to sleep on each other. They're sleeping in feces. It's awful. These conditions are completely awful, and they're not healthy by any means whatsoever. And often like 8 out of 10 times that the SPCA reports, these dogs are getting illnesses, getting diseases, and that's why you shouldn't be purchasing it from these like puppy stores, because they're 8 out of 10 times very sick, or something is wrong with them, or the breeding process just isn't happening naturally the way it should be happening, and that's why it's leading to a lot of these unfortunate diseases and causes and defects as well into these poor little puppies. So they're in these bad conditions, and then they get transported to these stores, and it doesn't stop there. Most of the time, if they are sick, they will not receive any type of veterinary care from a doctor. They'll just basically die, and they'll get rid of the dog if they're not sold in time. And these dogs are just left suffering for basically all their life until they're adopted. And most of the time they're not really adopted, because these puppy mills will have these elaborate, exquisite breeds of dogs that are pretty pricey, and they'll charge them like $5,000, sometimes even I've seen up to $10,000 for these little puppies, and that's just a lot, and not a lot of people can afford that. So these dogs are really just, bred to be having a disease, and then basically hoping that they can find an owner that will take them to get help from a veterinarian, and sometimes that won't even be enough because it's just too late, and they've been suffering for too long. So what we can do, and this is what the SPCA states on their website, to look out for the warning signs. If the seller has many types of purebreds or designer hybrid dogs, that's a big no-no. That's typically a big no-no, and especially if they're sold at less than 6 weeks old, that's a huge no, because you want these dogs to be with their mothers, compared to these puppy mills that are stripping these babies away from their mothers at such a young age. And that's, again, why it's leading to illnesses and diseases and defects in these poor little guys. If the breeders are reluctant to show potential customers the entire premises on where the animals are being held and bred, that's a big no-no too. You want to see where these dogs are living. You want to see the space and the condition. You want to make sure that this breeder is an honorable breeder. And breeders who do not ask you a lot of questions or interrogate you, that's a huge problem too, because you want a breeder to make sure that you're also capable of handling a dog and taking care of a dog, and you have the necessary aspects for that dog. And also a big, huge warning sign for any type of dog or type of breeder is the no guarantee, no responsibility. So if something happens to the dog or something happens to you and you cannot take care of this dog, that breeder, a good breeder, will say, hey, no, at any point in time of that lifetime for that dog, I will take that dog no matter what happens. But if a breeder says no guarantee, or if the dog gets sick, or if you can't take care of that dog, or whatever the case may be, vice versa, that you cannot bring that dog back to them, that's a big no-no too, because most of the time breeders are very honorable and they're going to take care of that dog no matter what. That's why they breed. So it's very important that you look for these signs when you're shopping around for your new pet animal for your family, but you want to make sure you're getting it from an honorable place that doesn't hurt these dogs and isn't committing awful acts against these poor dogs. And you don't want to have to spend a lot of money just for the baby to get sick, and then you can't even like enjoy your dog and have to spend so much money on veterinary bills, and not even talking about the emotional aspect that causes on your family. So it's unfortunate that this happens, but what we can do is make sure that this is not happening by not going to puppy mills and fancy pet stores, and going to your local breeder that is trusty, and going to your local pet shelter. My name is Carly Van Sickle, and that was my persuasive speech. Thank you.